This has always been our dream from the beginning of the company. About 3 years from now, we're confident we can make a very compelling $25,000 electric vehicle that's also fully autonomous.
Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Elon and Drew teased us with the upcoming Tesla Compact for 2023. Tesla Compact is the next big step in accelerating the transition to sustainable energy and accelerating Tesla to huge profits and a massive share price. Thanks to Bradford Ferguson of Halter Ferguson Financial and all my Patreon supporters. Patreon supporters help this channel grow, and they get access to discounts on t-shirts like this. There's links to Patreon and the merchandise below. So what will the Tesla Compact look like? How is this going to change the world? What will it do for Tesla's share price? Are you ready? Let's go! In the Master Plan Part 2, Elon said that a vehicle less expensive or smaller than the Model 3 would be unnecessary. But then at Battery Day, Elon and Drew showed the hint of a Tesla 2023 Compact that would be $25,000 or less. That's different from what Elon said in the Master Plan. So what changed? Why do a Tesla Compact? Answering this question requires an understanding of the future that Tesla and Elon envision. I'm not sure I'm right about it, but I'm going to tell you where I think they're going. I see two different possible futures. One future, the one I think is more likely, is a big shift to a robotaxi world where people don't own their own cars and they ride in robotaxis as needed. A robotaxi world is more convenient than owning your own car. There's all kinds of things you don't realize you have to do when you own your own car that the robotaxi world makes simpler. You never fill your gas tank. You never get an oil change. You never change the windshield wipers. You never need to replace the tires or rotate the tires. All the daily maintenance, all the shopping for car insurance, all the hassles, finding a parking spot or having a place to park your car. All these hassles are gone in a robotaxi world. And in a robotaxi world, you spend less money on your vehicle than you do when you own your car. That's the future I believe is coming, and I think that's the future that Elon and Tesla envision. But there's another version of the future that involves widespread vehicle ownership, and Elon is giving conflicting signals about that. This promotion of a $25,000 vehicle in 2023 goes the other way. Who cares if it's $25,000 if it's a robotaxi and we're just paying per mile? For one reason or another, they are pushing the cost of ownership.
And when you think about the $25,000 price point, you have to consider how much less expensive it is to own an electric vehicle.
They're trying to get to price parity where you can buy the vehicle for the same price as a gas vehicle. So there's at least some indication that Elon and Tesla are thinking about continuing to sell cars and that widespread vehicle ownership will be a big part of their plans. In either of these futures, the Tesla Compact is very important. And I should mention, the future could be a mixture of both. You could have widespread vehicle ownership, but less than we thought, and a growing share of robotaxis on the roads. In either future, a better design for manufacturing makes it possible for Tesla to produce the Tesla Compact in very high volumes. I'll talk about that more later in this video. If widespread vehicle ownership continues, the Tesla Compact is important because it lowers the cost to buy a vehicle and it lowers the total cost of ownership, the total cost that you spend over, say, the first 5 years you own the car. At Autonomy Day in 2019, Elon said he thought the Model 3 itself would eventually get the cost down to $25,000.
Yeah, probably, say long term, 3 years, robotaxis with eliminated parts, maybe it ends up being $25,000 or less.
But apparently that's not happening. It's possible they've decided they can't get there with the Model 3, or it's possible they've just figured out we can make a vehicle a lot better. We can engineer a much better way of making a vehicle than the way they've been making the Model 3. They can get there more easily and deliver better value with the Tesla Compact. That's why they're going this way. With engineering improvements, Tesla can get the price of the Tesla Compact down to $25,000, and I think they're sandbagging this. I think we're going to see the price down to $20,000. I'll talk about that later in this video as well. In a robotaxi future, the Tesla Compact dramatically lowers the cost per mile of operating the vehicle, which lowers the price that you can charge riders and still make a profit. That attracts more riders or leads to higher profits or both. At Autonomy Day, Elon said that the Model 3's cost per mile was already down to 18 cents a mile and going down.
The cost to run a Robotaxi, we think less than 18 cents a mile, and dropping. Like this would be current. This is current cost. Future costs will be lower.
I believe they're already at 15 cents a mile now that they have a million-mile battery in the made-in-China Model 3. The Tesla Compact should get costs below 10 cents a mile, and I think down maybe to 5 cents a mile, which is a huge improvement and really helps in that robotaxi world. So what will the Tesla Compact look like? I think it's a mix. There's more than one answer to this question. The answer depends a lot on where you are. Elon has talked in particular about a China design and a European design, and in talking about the European design, he clearly hinted something about the American design.
Possibly in Europe it would make sense to do, I guess, a compact car, so perhaps a hatchback or something like that. And something that, like, well, what do most people want? And in a given region, or what is a very popular approach to take? In the US, the cars tend to be bigger for personal taste reasons, and in Europe, it tends to be smaller. I think that would probably be a good candidate for original design, but I'm sure there'll be others as well. But that might be the wise place to start, and it helps us also say, okay, we need a car that people can afford, that fits their lifestyle and everything, and so probably something like that would make sense.
Based on Elon's comments, the European model is very likely to be a small 4 or 5 passenger hatchback. A smaller vehicle is easier for navigating European city streets and fitting into tight parking spots. The Volkswagen Golf is often talked about as a target for the Tesla Compact. This makes sense. When Tesla revealed the Cybertruck, they were very clearly targeting the Ford F-150, which is the best-selling vehicle in America and has been for a long time. The Volkswagen Golf is the best-selling vehicle in Europe, so targeting the best-selling vehicles seems to be a pattern. The Golf is much smaller than the Tesla Model 3. That reduced length and width and wheelbase would leave less room for a battery pack if they were using the same kind of manufacturing and engineering as the Model 3, but they won't be. The structural engineering is likely to be very different. More on that later. Turning to the US, it seems likely we will see a compact utility vehicle and maybe also a sedan, a small compact utility vehicle and a small sedan. The compact utility vehicle would be targeted at the Toyota RAV4 and the Honda CR-V, which are the two most popular CUVs in America and two of the most popular vehicles in America. And the small sedan would be targeted at the Toyota Corolla and the Honda Civic, which are the two most popular small sedans in America. It's important to note here the Golf is much smaller than those US vehicles. The Golf is down below 170 inches in length, where the American vehicles I just talked about are over 180 inches in length. So we're talking about a big drop. It's a 15-plus inch drop from the length of the Model 3 and a 10-inch drop from the RAV4 and the Corolla. Figure that the Tesla Compact CUV would be 6 inches shorter than the Model Y and a few inches narrower than the Model Y as well. The Civic and Corolla would be of similar length, but still a little bit narrower and shorter, obviously, because sedans aren't as tall as SUVs and CUVs. The reduced size of the Tesla Compact, getting everything into a smaller package, means less materials that go into the vehicle, less mass, less weight, and that means lower manufacturing cost if you do it right, and Tesla's going to do it right. You also get smaller frontal area, and I imagine we're going to see some really good aerodynamics, and that creates better efficiency, meaning more miles per kilowatt hour, better range on the same size battery pack that you're going to have. For me, at least, China is harder to predict. What will the Asia model be like? The Chinese market is harder for me to understand because I've never been to China. The top-selling model in China in 2019 was the Volkswagen Lavida, or Lavida. That's a compact sedan that's pretty close to the US Toyota Corolla. And the Corolla itself is the number 4 selling vehicle in China, so it seems likely that we will see a compact sedan in China. The other top sellers in China are CUVs or small SUVs. Number 2 on the list is the Great Wall Haval H6, which is pretty close to the RAV4 and the CR-V. It is slightly narrower and slightly taller. And the number 3 is a smaller CUV, the Wuling Hongguang. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. And that's several inches shorter and narrower, although still tall. There are more sedans on the list that are a bit smaller than the Corolla and the Lavada, so maybe we'll see a sedan slightly smaller. My gut suggests they may go with the same size format as they are in the US, but when I mapped it out slightly smaller than the US versions. For me, the fun part of this story is the engineering side of things. My biggest predictions, the things that I think matter the most for the Tesla 2023 Compact, relate to engineering. The most striking shift will be going from high-performance vehicles to high-efficiency vehicles. The vehicles will still perform reasonably well, but the goal will no longer be fast acceleration, great cornering, but rather low rolling resistance, high efficiency, so you get more range out of less battery.
So we'll actually be adjusting tire design and really optimizing the car for a hyper-efficient robotaxi.
The Tesla Compact will have low rolling resistance tires with extremely long life, getting 100,000 miles on a set of tires. It will use smaller wheels and tires. This will save weight in a key location, and that greatly increases vehicle efficiency. Car and Driver magazine found that going from 19-inch wheels to 15-inch wheels increased efficiency by 10%. That actually improved acceleration. There was a drop-off in cornering performance, but high G-force cornering is not really desirable in a robotaxi for the passengers. They want a smooth ride. So with Tesla's thoughtful engineering and careful engineering, we should see a 20% increase in efficiency by going to low rolling resistance tires on smaller wheels. Tires for smaller wheels cost less, and that means over the life of the car, you will be spending less on tires, which reduces that cost per mile, which is an important target for robotaxis. If Tesla is really aggressive on this front, they could go down as low as 13-inch wheels, which used to be a lot more common in America. But I think they're more likely to go with something like 15-inch wheels, which still achieves a lot. Next in engineering, the structural battery pack is coming to the Berlin Model Y and then the Austin Model Y, and eventually to the entire Model Y and Model 3 range, Model S and Model X, and so on. This impending first-generation structural battery pack involves basically a rigid rectangle of 4680 batteries that forms the chassis itself between the front and rear of the car. Cybertruck and Roadster will also be very likely to have a structural battery pack, but it's hard for us to know exactly how that's going to play out with those vehicles. Cybertruck probably will not have front and rear castings relying on an exoskeleton for its structure, so how the battery pack integrates with that is unclear. And Roadster's chassis is a mystery. That's a video I'm probably going to make down the road. But that's what's happening in 2020. Tesla Compact is coming in 2023. That's 3 years from now. So I expect we're going to see a second generation of structural battery pack with new innovations that make structural battery pack more efficient, saving weight, and adding other advantages. I'm not sure I know what all of them are. We can't know what the second generation structural battery pack will be, but my hunch is, and I think this makes sense, that structural battery pack second generation will take over more of the chassis. That currently, structural battery pack is a rectangle in the middle and you have castings on either side. This limits how many batteries you can fit in because you're limited to that rectangle. And it's very simple in being just a rectangle. I picture, and of course I could be wrong, that the new structural battery pack, the second generation, will extend to be longer to go between the wheels instead of starting at the front wheels, starting at the front axle and going to the rear axle. They'll be able to extend it further north and south, further towards the front of the vehicle and more towards the rear of the vehicle. And that the battery pack will take over more of the structure of the chassis. The more of the chassis you replace with structural battery pack, the more weight you save. In a sense, what we have now is cell to chassis. We were thinking cells and modules, then we were thinking cell to pack. Now it appears we've got cell to chassis, and the next step is that the cells become the chassis. That the entire chassis, or as much of the chassis as possible, is made of battery cells. By having battery cells take over more of the structure, you save more weight and you create more room to add more battery cells. You create more room to add more battery capacity. And I could see additional design changes, taking it from a solid rectangle to opening up some space, which may allow additional cooling as well. And could lead to a more advanced structural design that makes the vehicle perform better. From the beginning of Tesla, the battery pack has pretty much been between the front axle and the rear axle. With the compact, we're expecting that wheelbase to shrink, the distance between the front and rear axle we're expecting the distance between the front and rear axle to shrink. And we're also expecting the vehicle to get narrower. That creates a smaller rectangle with less room for battery cells. And we're expecting the compact to use lithium iron phosphate cells, which are volumetric. They're not good in terms of volumetric density. They take up more space. So being able to go beyond the front axle and behind the rear axle creates more space for more battery cells, and that's going to matter. Another theory is that the 2023 compact could use Cybertruck's steel exoskeleton construction. That's a stretch. I think it's possible, but I'm not going there in this video. Another engineering detail is the drivetrain. We can expect Tesla's aggressive engineering to get a little bit more efficiency out of the electric drivetrain. The lighter weight of the vehicle will allow for a smaller single motor driving the vehicle, and that saves further weight. This saving weight just keeps adding onto itself. The more weight you save, the more weight you can save. The more weight you can save here, the less battery you can use, which means the more weight you can save, which means you can use a smaller motor, which means you can save more weight. It feeds upon itself. It's really important getting the weight down. I also expect that the compact might be engineered for lower speeds, that the optimal vehicle operation would be at a lower speed. Instead of planning on a vehicle that can go 120, 130, 140 miles an hour, if you focus on a vehicle that's mostly driving in urban and suburban environments with speeds under, say, 60 miles an hour, you can optimize the vehicle so it runs more efficiently at those lower speeds. And that just gets you a little bit more range for the uses that you need it for. The final engineering detail is designing for manufacturability. The Tesla compact will be designed to be made in high volumes. Fewer parts, fewer processes means it's easier to make a lot of them quicker. After the production ramps, I expect that a single gigafactory will be able to produce 4 million Tesla compacts a year. That's a huge volume. With gigafactories in the United States, Europe, and Asia, that's 12 million compacts a year, and we're probably talking about the year 2025. That's a big volume of vehicles, especially when you add it to the increased volume of Model 3s and Model Ys and so on that we're going to see by then. Tesla will be close to 20 million vehicles a year in 2025, if this goes the way I'm suggesting. That manufacturing detail is critical for Tesla's overall economic performance and share price. If Tesla is able to increase production of vehicles to 20 million vehicles in 2025 from maybe 1 million or 1.5 million vehicles in 2021, that is astonishing growth. But that is what this 2023 compact could conceivably do by making it much more manufacturable, increasing the ability to manufacture it in high volumes. It radically increases the ability of Tesla to make more vehicles. And by going to 20 million vehicles, keeping in mind this is a lower priced vehicle if they're selling it, you're still having this huge volume and the revenue of the company skyrockets. The jump in revenue is insane when you get to 20 million vehicles. And because of that, Tesla's share price would be something like 20x what it is today. So the share price today is over $550 a share. You 20x 500 and you get to $10,000 a share in 2025. I think that's overly optimistic in a sense, but it makes sense that that's where we're headed. It makes sense that that is where Tesla is headed. And you see the exponential growth. When you see the change that's happening where we're going from, okay, we're just producing some Model S's and some Model X's to, okay, now we're producing Model 3s and Model Ys at scale. And now the next step is a vehicle that we can produce in really, really high volumes. And we increase number of factories and there's more factories producing more vehicles. It feeds on itself and the profits go into building the factories, and the more factories means you produce more and you produce more batteries. And it really, the limiting factor is always battery production. Can they get enough batteries produced to support all these vehicles? Can CATL and LG Chem and Panasonic scale up their outside production? Can Tesla scale up their internal production? We've already seen LG Chem is planning to more than double their battery production this coming year. So we're seeing that scale happening. We're seeing that growth happening, and it just needs to continue. And this will Both accelerate the transition to sustainable energy by making widely available electric vehicles that are cost competitive with internal combustion engine vehicles, price competitive at the start, and then cost competitive, more than cost competitive over the long haul. All of this comes together, and that's not even talking about Tesla Energy. So we're seeing potentially insane share price for Tesla as early as 2025. All of these changes create two key advantages for the Tesla Compact. The most obvious advantage is lower cost and lower price. Tesla will be able to make these vehicles for a lower cost, spreading the economies of scale over more vehicles, and they should easily get the price down to $25,000. I think we're going to see this vehicle come in under $20,000, undercutting the Toyota Corolla and the Honda Civic at their MSRP. Using lithium iron phosphate battery cells is another way they lower cost, and keeping the battery size down lowers cost. Less battery capacity means you need to use less battery, which saves more money. Smaller size, lower weight, smaller wheels and tires, greater efficiency, all allow a smaller battery capacity, and that further lowers weight and cost. Using lithium iron phosphate does add weight because lithium iron phosphate cells weigh more per kilowatt hour than the nickel-based cells. But to some extent, this is offset by the structural battery pack design. The second key advantage is lowering the cost per mile of operating the vehicle. The average American spends 60 cents a mile on their internal combustion engine vehicle. In 2019, Tesla had the Model 3 down to 18 cents a mile, and most people who are watching think they're down to 15 cents a mile on the current generation Tesla Model 3. The improvements I describe here would dramatically lower that cost per mile. At the extreme, Tesla is going to get their compact down as low as 5 cents a mile, a nickel a mile. This lower cost matters for the ordinary vehicle owner, but it matters a lot more in a robotaxi world. Initially, I expect Robotaxi to cost $1 a mile or more, but over time that price will drop. The lower you can get the cost of the Robotaxi mile in the first place, the lower you'll be able to lower the price in a competitive market or an uncompetitive market. Just when you're trying to increase the number of people using Robotaxis, it allows you to bring the price down more and still make a healthy profit. After a few years, the price of a Robotaxi ride will probably fall to 60 cents a mile or even 50 cents a mile, which becomes less than the cost of owning an internal combustion engine vehicle and brings a lot more customers along, a lot more people deciding to take ride shares rather than owning their own car. Getting the cost per mile as low as possible generates maximum profitability even in a very competitive market, which probably won't exist, but if it does exist, it allows you to continue making profits even if prices fall. It allows you to compete with others who try to enter the market. So what will we see in the Tesla Compact lineup? This is a spreadsheet showing the various models and what numbers they might represent in the US, in Europe, and in China. Let's start by looking at the current Model 3 and Model Y. They're about 186 inches or 470 centimeters long, and they weigh between 3,600 and 4,400 pounds, 1,630 kilograms to 2,000 kilograms. In the spreadsheet, I consider two variations, one where it's a personal use vehicle and has a larger battery pack to allow more range, and another for urban robotaxis which don't require as much range. The personal use vehicles are at or about 300 miles of range, where the robotaxi vehicles only need 200 miles of range, and let me explain why. I see an urban suburban robotaxi driving about 150 miles in the morning from roughly 6 a.m. till sometime in early afternoon. At some point in there, it charges to get its battery pack closer to that 200-mile level. Keep in mind, lithium iron phosphate can go down to zero and up to full capacity without affecting cycle life significantly. So it does 150 miles in the morning, charges in the middle of the day, does another 150 miles until around midnight, and it's done for the day. It gets 300 miles a day. That's 100,000 miles a year from that robotaxi. That's a 10-year life on a million-mile battery. And I should say I think lithium iron phosphate is going to be more than a million miles. By choosing to go with a 200-mile range and a smaller battery pack, it means the vehicle weighs even less, and that makes it even more efficient. Assuming some size variation across continents, in the US we would see a small sedan and a small compact utility vehicle around 180 inches long. Each of them would be about 3 inches narrower than the Model 3 and Model Y counterparts. The weight would range from 2,800 pounds for the sedan robotaxi up to 3,200 pounds for the personal use compact utility vehicle. Overall, this gets the cost per mile down to around 7 cents for the CUV and 6 cents for the sedan. Remember, that's the US versions. Looking at Europe, a small hatchback model would be extremely efficient and inexpensive. The European hatchback drops an extra 10 inches in length, and that saves a lot of weight. It also lowers the cost to build it because you're using less material. My estimate is the weight on that vehicle falls as low as 2,500 pounds, or 1,140 kilograms. The manufacturing cost gets down to $15,000 or less, and the sales price ends up being under $20,000. And again, I think I'm being pessimistic or conservative here, and I think we may see better numbers in 2023. Because the vehicle is so small, we could see the battery capacity get down to 40 kilowatt hours, which allows you to spread those batteries over more vehicles. You can make more vehicles from the batteries that you produce. And that cost per mile spread over 1,000,000 miles gets down to a nickel, 5 cents a mile. It's amazing. As I said earlier, Tesla's probably going to target the Volkswagen Lavida and the Toyota Corolla. And I think we're going to see vehicles fairly close in size to the US, but maybe 178 inches long and 69 inches wide, slightly smaller. The Chinese CUV would actually be a little bit taller because that seems to be the thing with China's CUVs. These vehicles would also likely fall between the United States and European models in pricing. And that China sedan could get the cost per mile down close to that nickel a mile we saw for the European model. Maybe a little more, but I think it could get close to 5 cents a mile as well. Now, with all that said, if Tesla goes to the full-on Robotaxi scenario, it might make sense to make every vehicle the same dimensions as the European one I talked about here. That's what I would do if I was running Tesla. But I'm not running Tesla, and I think we're all happy about that because Elon does a really good job. And the odds are Elon knows a lot better what he's doing than I could possibly try. So what do you think will happen with a Tesla 2023 Compact? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're at it, like this video and share it with your friends, of course. The future could be even more interesting than the Tesla 2023 Compact if you look at my video here where I talk about the pod car robotaxi of the future, which I think might be 2026. Please become a Patreon supporter. You can message me there. There's links to all that and to the t-shirts in the description below. Please subscribe, like this video, and of course, thank you for watching.